Hey all, so I was going to be doing van stuff today, except currently it is sleeting after having rained all day, so the van is encased in ice. So even though I could pull it in the garage to work on it, I would then fill the garage with wet and gross. So I've decided to skip that, but even though it's sleeting out, it's still the nicest day we've had all week in terms of temperature. So I did want to spend some time out here. So I think what I'm going to do is a couple of garage infrastructure projects. I'm going to make attempt number 2 at building the bench with the built-in parts washer. So we're going to try that, see if that works better. I've been thinking about changing it a little bit to give me a slot to put an away spot for my tabletop drill press, just to get that out of the way as well. So yeah, we're going to get to it and we're going to see what happens. So this is the bench top from the prior attempt to build a bench that included that parts washer in it. And I'm realizing an error that I made on this, which would have made that project even bigger problem, which is that I have a baseboard of 2x6 all the way around here. So the wall is actually slightly recessed. And having put the leg posts at the ends here, they would have been against that, and then there would have been a gap before I got to the wall. So there would have been a fitment issue, which I could have fixed. I have it fixed over there against some other stuff by having another 2x4 screwed on higher up. That's a possibility, but it makes more sense to just build the thing in at the back by just the width of this, which is going to be more than enough to account for the baseboard, and just put the posts here instead of here and solve that problem. Also, if I'm building a space for the drill press, that is at its narrowest 9 inches and 22 inches tall. So the height's not a problem. This is going to be 36 all total to the top. But I mean to add 9 inches to it. This is 36. The old bench that is coming out is 48. And I need a few more inches added for how I'm modifying this. So I should be okay there, but I also know that this 36 doesn't need to be 36. So I'm thinking I'm going to cut it down to its minimum, i.e. the width of the parts washer, and then that'll give me an extra inch or two for the frame here while still giving me extra space for that. So I think the next step is to drag the parts washer over here. Lid of this is 30.5 inches. My current gap here is 34. So I can take 2 inches out of this and still safely be wide enough for it. I'm about to pause for dinner, but this is my new top. It's the same piece as before that's supposed to fit around the tub, but over there I've extended it out, and what I'm going to do is cut a piece of wood to drop in between those two, and that's going to be just a little bit of bench over where the drill press goes. And then I've got one side here and the other side up on there, because This side just has the lower shelf because that's where the drill press is going to sit. That side has 2 shelves. And then what I'm going to do is the bottom shelf is going to span all the way across. And then I'm going to bring some verticals down from that side of the U down to that bottom shelf. And then those verticals will have the other support for the other upper shelf that the tub sits on. We are trucking along. So the last thing I did was welded some nuts into the bottom of these legs so I have adjustable feet on the front. Got the sides in, I've got the center piece in here, I've got the main part of the lower bit here in. I need to cut a piece of plywood that fits in this lower frame and then make some tabs because it's going to drop into this space. I was going to lay it on top originally, and then I realized I'm wasting the depth of the plywood as height. I can just make the piece of plywood the size to fit inside here and make some tabs for it to sit on. And then that shelf will be completely done. I don't think I need to break this up here. This is the area that's going to hold the drill press. These are what the tub is going to sit on for the parts washer. What I need to do now is cut 2 pieces that fit inside here and here, the same way this bottom one did. And then I need to position the tub. I'm probably going to I may end up bolting the tub to those or something. But anyway, I need to get the tub where I want it front to back. And then that's going to decide where those are going to be welded in so that it can sit on it. And then there'll probably be 2 more pieces between those 2 bars so that the tub is sitting in a frame that's its own size so it can't shift around. But everything's going back together much nicer than it did last time. Everything's nice and straight and aligned. Feels really nice and solid. I'm really much happier with how this is coming together. This shelf here I specifically sized so that I can fit this bin for the portable bandsaw in. What that means is this is the piece it's replacing. And if you can see, the drain pans are underneath, and then that empty space is where that bin I just showed you is. But you can see everything there doesn't reach all the way up to the top. So I'm going to lose those 2 drawers. That's okay, I'm planning to move those anywhere. I can move those somewhere else. But functionally, as far as shelf space, I'm not losing anything, which means I'm going to have the parts washer in here, but not lose any functional space vertically. I'll lose horizontal space, obviously, because the drill press will be in here, but at the same time, it gets the drill press off of where it's been sitting on the bench in the way, so it frees up benchtop space, which is at a much greater premium, as you can see here, because my bench is always in a pile of stuff. But yeah, that's coming along really great. I'm really happy with that. This is going to be a very functional piece once I have it done. And I'll gain a parts washer, I'll gain storage. I won't lose much in the way of storage. So, all right, we're going to go back on time lapse and get these last couple pieces finished up so that I can call this done. And we are done here. Something I realized I did not check at any point during this, so you're going to see me live find out whether I screwed up or not. So the table is more or less level. It could be a little bit higher on this side, but it's more or less level. Now, here's my build. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, more or less level. How about on this side? Yeah, more or less level. Sweet. The reason I sound so thrilled on that one is the last one. If you watch the other video, I had a lot of problems when I was doing the video with stuff being wonky in like this plane and this plane. And I fought with it and I tweaked stuff and I made cuts, relief cuts to move things. And I got it all to a point where I thought it was good. And then there's no second half of that because you'll see it's labeled part 1. Because when I then tried to move it somewhere and check something, it turned out the entire thing was bad in this direction. It was a parallelogram. So the top was level, obviously the floor is level, but the entire unit, this leg was this way, this leg was this way. And of course, if it's sitting against another bench, that's completely useless. So I was very careful when I was building this one to check my 90 degrees as I went along, but I just realized until just now, I hadn't checked that my verticals were actually vertical. And boy, after you put paint on it, that would have been a really bad time to find out I was wrong. So I'm thrilled as hell that it's not. But yeah, okay. So this is done, essentially. The thing fits in here, the parts washer fits in here, and this frame is exactly big enough for the legs on it. So it'll drop in here and lock in on its own. Like, this is just literally needs plywood cut for it, and it needs a second coat of green paint. And this is ready to go in. Again, this is going to go right there. So it's going to be the first of my bench replacements. So I had a brilliant idea on this, of course, after I'd put the first coat of paint on it. But this area where the drill press is going, it occurred to me that if the drill press can slide out of here, then if I just have a simple thing to drill, I don't have to pull the drill press out, set it up on the counter, pull it back out, put it back to drill like one hole. I can just slide it out, make that drill, and then slide it back in again. And I have these sliders, which are off of an old lateral file cabinet that I took apart for shelves for the lockers. And these are triple slide units that extend quite a ways out and are designed to hold a drawer's worth of paper. So they're actually rated for a pretty high amount. I don't know what exactly, but a large, because this was like a 36-inch lateral file. So it was actually going to hold like, these are probably rated for at least 100 to 200 pounds easy. And if I can mount one here and one on the other side right here, that'll give me plenty of depth to slide out. And I did the measuring. This is 10 inches wide. The base of the drill press is 7.5 inches wide. With these in place, I have about 8 inches, so it'll just work. So what I can do is if I can get these mounted on either side, I can then secure even just I probably don't even need to weld anything. I probably just need a piece of plywood screwed to each of these as the base, and then that will slide in and out. But now what I'm going to do is see if I can figure out how to mount these. The back won't be hard because I can just put a bolt through or screw or whatever into whatever I build to hold it. The front will be harder because I don't have access. There's no way to get through to here, and the fitment is very tight because this piece sits right up against it. Like if this can't go 100%, back because I put a bolt here, that's not a problem. I'll just adjust where it's mounted accordingly. But it's the front, there's no depth. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is having to weld a stud on here. Fortunately, most of the stress this thing's going to be under is going to be in the back because it'll pivot on the front. The back will be taking the weight, so I just have to make that strong, and the front will be pretty much okay. I'm going to set you up on time-lapse, and I'm going to try and figure out how to do this. The most annoying part of this is probably going to be getting the not entirely cured paint off where I have to weld. but that's my own fault for coming up with this idea late. So you just saw me weld the support for the back of one of the sliders and then a crossbar that I'm going to weld the other support on top of. The measurement that I've decided on is that the top of this rail is going to be 3¼ inches off from the base. That gives me enough clearance below it that I feel confident that it'll slide properly. So for the other one, what I was able to do, because I was welding it to the side of the beam, is just adjust it till I got it to that right height and then clamp it in place and weld it. For this one, because of where the beam is, it's going to sit on top of it, so I don't have that ability to sort of futz with it in place. So what I'm going to do is take my piece, drill a hole, bolt it to this, and then just because I'm having trouble, ironically, I could use the drill press for this, but it's so buried in trash right now, I can't really get to it. But because I can't accurately drill a hole in this to an exact point, what I'm going to do is drill a hole in this, bolt it to this, mark where the top is of this on that, take it off, measure 3¼ inches down and cut it there. And then that'll make this post the correct height to just stand it on the beam and weld it in place. And then the fronts of these, I was looking at them, I cut all the clip brackets that held this onto the other one, but there's this little tab here that is useful for locating them both the same distance front to back. This I've got tucked up against the front vertical. And what I'm thinking of doing, just because of the access, is instead of putting a stud on this like I was talking about, I'm thinking what I may just do is tack weld this at the top and the bottom, possibly even just the top, but definitely going to tack this directly onto there. It's kind of a hack because if I ever need to take these off later, I have to cut those welds. But if I take these out later to put something else in, I'm going to have to modify it anyway, because none of this, I'm not using any off-the-shelf hardware. So I think rather than go through a bunch of effort to try and put a stud in this and then drill a hole in that in the right location to feed a bolt through, because the other problem with that is on the outer side, that bolt head will be sticking out past the depth of the unit, which means if it's sitting up against something else, that bolt head will be in the way. So I think I'm actually better off to get these at the right height and then just tack weld them in 2 spots to hold them in, because that's less work to put them in now, causes less problems, and does not significantly change my life later if I'm taking these back out again. So I think I'm just going to do that for simplicity. It's just going to be to weld these in at the top. I'm still going to put a bolt in at the back just because I've already got the hole, and it gives me a little bit of flexibility as I'm putting it in. But that's how I'm going to handle that. And these will go in, and then I just need to cut a piece of wood to become the shelf that sits on this on both of them. There's already a hole at the back on both of them. I can put a screw up through. I'm going to drill another one, at least in the front, maybe in the middle, whatever, to put a couple screws up through to hold that piece of wood in place. And this should be done. This is going to give me a little more functionality on this, which always makes me happy. So yeah, let's get to that. So this is the drawer it's in. I added these little tabs like I had on the original for the piece of plywood to sit on, because now it's going to be shorter and it's going to sit there. Now that this is in place, we'll go on here, and then we find out whether I did this right at all The light is a little bit of a problem. Yeah, so the light is the only thing that hits on this side, and I don't really need this light. So maybe I'll remove it, maybe not, but as long as this is hard up against the left side, the handle's all clear just fine. That goes in just fine. That's excellent. Oh, while I have the drill press out, so the chuck that I need for the drill press, I've got a heavy-duty neodymium magnet stuck to the back of this. And it means I can just stick the chuck right there. I don't have to worry about putting it down, losing it, anything like that. I use it and I literally just do this and go back to whatever I'm doing. So, little trick there. All right, and here we go. Bench is in place and loaded up. I cut a piece of plywood for the bottom, cut these two pieces on the top. The bottom is just dropped in there. This piece is screwed in place down into the steel. It would have been nice if I had something a little thicker, but it's what I had. This piece is just set in here so that I can do this. And then this right now is just set in here because I had to like force it in. Once I painted the frame, it was so tight this barely fits in. So I think it's going to be just fine. And then this is a Harbor Freight one. I made a couple modifications to it. One was I added this pull down clamp. This is just another piece of the 7/8 square stock that I've been using. A couple tech screws from the back, a couple tech screws from the front, one tech screw holding this on, and then I put a rubber gasket in here so that I can fill this with solvent and my garage won't stink like it and the solvent won't evaporate. Just close this up, pull it down tight, done. Yeah, so very happy with this project. Worked out really great. Pops back on there, and then this I can slide out and use, or I can just pick it up and put it right there and use it that way. And then my Sawzall, big sockets, and bandsaw all still fit. The bandsaw is very tight, but it fits. Paint supplies bin still fits under there, and then my drip pans still tuck under. So these couple of paint trays and this bin of evaporust are the only things that were under here that no longer are. I find that a perfectly valid trade-off for the amount of added stuff that I've gained. So yeah, I've already leveled it using the little feet in the front. So this is ready to go. It didn't gain me as much space as I'd hoped because I didn't realize, but at some point over the years of moving these benches around, see how this has a 2x4 in the end? I apparently cut that off this side at some point. So this bench wasn't 48 inches. It was like, I don't know, 47.5-ish. So this one being 45.5-ish didn't actually gain me as much space as I'd hoped. So I'm still going to have to sort of shunt everything down a little to gain my space that I need here, because I think that toolbox is up against the metal rack, and I don't want to make the metal rack any smaller. But good project. Came out exactly the way I wanted it. The added thing of holding the drill press just makes me even gladder. Something that occurred to me while I was putting things in is that if I really wanted to, I could modify this so the drill press sits as far back as I can get it, and I can make a swing out set of shelves or drawers or something that sit in front of it to sorry, a lot of sawdust in here. I can build a swing out set of shelves or drawers or something that sit in front of it, so the drill press is actually completely hidden back there when I'm not using it, and that'll gain me back that depth. But I don't know, future thought for a future time. But came out exactly the way I'd hoped, went together perfectly, went together way better than my last attempt, and now I just have to not move all this trash immediately back onto here. My next job in here is going to be to clean up all the mess that I moved off of the old one so that it doesn't just get piled back onto the new one. So there we go. Workbench with a built-in parts washer and a place to put my drill press when I'm not using it so that they don't take up space in the shop. Really happy with how this came out. Really good. Going to make my shop a little bit nicer to use. Gains me a whole extra tool that I didn't have before, i.e. the parts washer. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.